Life is often framed as a battle, a conflict between ourselves and the world around us, a series of challenges that we must overcome, one after the other. We are taught that every difficulty we encounter is an enemy to be defeated, and the only path to success is through force, through sheer willpower. This notion is deeply ingrained in our culture, in our values, and in the way we approach problems. We see life as a battlefield, and ourselves as soldiers armed with determination and resolve, ready to fight for what we want. But what if this framing of life is incomplete? What if life isn't a battle at all? What if instead of seeing every challenge as an opponent to be vanquished, we saw it as an opportunity to understand, to adapt, to grow? What if the true essence of life is not about conquering, but about flowing, about moving with the current instead of against it? The idea that life is not a battle invites us to reconsider the way we engage with the world. In this perspective, life is not something we must fight to control or master. It is something we must learn to live in harmony with. We do not need to treat every obstacle as a war to be won, but as a situation to navigate, a moment to understand and learn from. There is a profound difference between resisting life's flow and allowing ourselves to flow with it. When we view life as a battle, we are constantly in a state of tension. We create enemies out of every difficulty, and we exhaust ourselves trying to win every confrontation. This mentality can lead to unnecessary stress, anxiety, and burnout. We become so focused on the outcome, on winning, that we forget the beauty of the process itself. We become so obsessed with the idea of defeating something that we lose sight of the lessons it might have to offer. We might even overlook the possibility that some challenges are not meant to be defeated, but to be understood and integrated into our lives. In contrast, when we approach life as a flow, we realize that we are not separate from the world around us. We are not individual warriors standing alone against a hostile universe. Rather, we are part of a greater whole, part of an interconnected web of existence. The challenges we face are not external forces trying to harm us, but opportunities to engage with life more deeply, to learn and to evolve. Life is not a war, it is a conversation, an exchange, a dance. And in this dance, sometimes we lead, sometimes we follow, but we are always moving together in rhythm with the universe. Embracing life as a flow requires us to relinquish the illusion of control. It requires us to let go of the need to always have the upper hand, to always be in charge, and to surrender to the fact that life is unpredictable, impermanent, and ever-changing. In the face of uncertainty, we can find peace, not by fighting, but by accepting what is. This acceptance doesn't mean passivity or resignation. It means engaging with life as it is, not as we wish it to be. It means being present in the moment, allowing ourselves to respond to challenges with awareness and wisdom, rather than reacting out of fear or frustration. When we stop seeing life as a battle, we free ourselves from the constant pressure of needing to be victorious. We stop tying our self-worth to our ability to overcome every obstacle, and instead we begin to see ourselves as part of an ongoing process of growth and transformation. We realize that there is no final victory, no ultimate endgame. There is only the journey, the continuous unfolding of life. This shift in perspective can radically change the way we experience challenges. Instead of seeing them as something to be feared or avoided, we can see them as opportunities to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world. Every challenge becomes a chance to expand, to learn, to transform. We no longer need to win against the world. Instead, we can simply be present with it, engage with it, and grow alongside it. By letting go of the idea that life is a battle, we also release the burden of constant striving. We stop measuring our success by the number of battles we've won or the obstacles we've overcome, and instead we measure it by the depth of our experience, the richness of our understanding, and the peace we find in simply being. We learn that true success is not about defeating the world, but about embracing it with all of its challenges, uncertainties, and imperfections. In this embrace, we discover that life is not something to fight against, but something to live with in harmony, in balance, and in constant transformation. Ultimately, life is not a battle, it is a flow. It is not about conquering anything, but about being open to the infinite possibilities that each moment offers. By releasing the need to fight, to win, or to control, we create space for true freedom, the freedom to live without fear, to grow without resistance, and to move with the rhythm of existence itself. Life, when viewed in this way, becomes not a war to be won, but a beautiful journey to be experienced. Flexibility is one of the most essential qualities we can cultivate in life, yet it is often overlooked or underestimated in favor of traits like strength, determination, or perseverance. We are taught to be steadfast, to hold firm to our beliefs and desires, and to push forward relentlessly toward our goals. While determination can be valuable, it is often the ability to bend, to adapt, and to remain open to change that leads to true growth and success. When we think about strength, we often imagine something rigid, unyielding, like a stone or a steel beam. It seems as though strength is about holding one's ground, standing tall against the forces that threaten to knock us down. But this image of strength, though powerful in its own right, is incomplete. Real strength is not the ability to resist all forces. It is the ability to respond to them with flexibility, to bend without breaking, to adapt without losing your sense of self. Imagine a tree in a storm. The wind howls, the branches sway, and the trunk creaks under the pressure. Yet the tree does not break, it does not snap in half. Instead, it bends with the wind. It does not resist the force of the storm, but works with it, allowing itself to move with the changing currents. This is a perfect example of flexibility in action, strength not in resisting, but in yielding and moving with the flow. In our own lives, we are often confronted with challenges that seem like storms. We face unexpected changes, difficult situations, or moments of deep uncertainty. When we approach these challenges with rigidity, we set ourselves up for frustration, disappointment, and even failure. We try to hold firm, to push against the current, and we end up drained, overwhelmed, and stuck. It is only when we learn to bend, to shift our perspective, and to accept change that we can truly find peace in the midst of uncertainty. Flexibility is not about being passive or indecisive. It is about having the wisdom to know when to let go and when to hold firm. It is the ability to change direction when the winds shift, to adjust our approach when a plan isn't working, and to stay grounded even as the world around us is in constant motion. Flexibility allows us to navigate life's ups and downs with a sense of grace and balance, instead of resistance and frustration. This quality of flexibility also applies to our internal world, our thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. Just as we must adapt to the external challenges we face, we must also be willing to adapt to our internal state. Many of us are deeply attached to our beliefs, ideas, and desires, and we can become rigid in our thinking. We hold on to our assumptions as though they are absolute truths, and when reality doesn't align with our expectations, we resist it. We become upset, frustrated, or disillusioned. Flexibility, in this sense, means being open to change within ourselves. It means being willing to question our assumptions, to examine our beliefs, and to allow ourselves to grow. It means embracing uncertainty instead of fearing it, accepting that we don't have all the answers and that it's okay to change our minds. It is in this flexibility that we find the space to grow, to evolve, and to transform. In relationships, too, flexibility is essential. We often expect others to behave in ways that fit our expectations, and when they don't, we become upset or frustrated. But people are not rigid objects to be shaped to our will. They are living, breathing beings with their own desires, fears, and ways of thinking. If we insist that others bend to our will, we close ourselves off from the richness of human connection. But if we approach others with flexibility, willing to listen, to compromise, to understand, we create the space for deeper, more meaningful relationships. In work, in creativity, in all aspects of life, flexibility allows us to find solutions that we might not have seen if we were too attached to a single approach or outcome. Problems and obstacles are not the end of the road, but an invitation to explore new ways of thinking and acting. When we face a challenge with flexibility, we are open to the possibility that the solution might not look like what we expected. Instead of rigidly holding on to one path, we explore, experiment, and adapt. But flexibility does not mean weakness. It is not about giving up on what you truly want or letting go of your values and principles. Flexibility is about recognizing when it's time to adjust, to adapt, and to move in a new direction. It is about responding to life's challenges with intelligence and awareness, not just stubbornness or blind determination. Flexibility means being strong enough to flow with the current, even when the waters are turbulent, and to trust that you will find your way. In the grand scheme of life, flexibility is a form of wisdom. It is the recognition that life is not static, that change is the only constant, and that true strength lies not in resisting change, but in embracing it. When we allow ourselves to bend with life's flow, we discover the freedom to move, to grow, and to become the best versions of ourselves. Flexibility is not the absence of strength, it is the presence of wisdom. It is the ability to dance with life rather than fight against it. And in this dance we find the grace and the peace that make life truly beautiful. Ego and stubbornness are two of the most insidious forces that can trap us in life. They create a false sense of identity and control, leading us to believe that we must defend ourselves against the world, that we must prove ourselves to others, and that our way of thinking is the only valid one. These mental constructs, though often masked as self-confidence or resolve, can lead us to a narrow, rigid existence, disconnected from the natural flow of life and from the deeper truths of our own being. At the core of ego is the belief in separation, the idea that we are distinct, individual entities that exist apart from others and from the world around us. The ego thrives on distinction, on comparison, on the need to feel superior or at least equal to others. It builds itself up by attaching to external factors such as achievements, possessions, or the approval of others. It tells us that we are only valuable or worthy when we succeed, when we are praised, when we are recognized. In this way, ego creates a constant cycle of striving and seeking validation, which never ends because there is always more to achieve, more to prove, and more to compare. This attachment to ego leads to stubbornness, which is the refusal to let go of our fixed ideas, our rigid identities, and our preconceived notions. When we are stubborn, we resist change because it threatens the comfort of our ego's sense of certainty. We hold tight to our beliefs, even when they no longer serve us, even when they limit our growth, or even when they are challenged by new experiences. We become unwilling to consider alternatives, to be open to new perspectives, because to do so would mean admitting that we are not as solid, as unchanging as we would like to believe. In this way, ego and stubbornness work together to trap us in a prison of our own making, limiting our potential and our ability to experience the world as it truly is. The problem with ego and stubbornness is that they prevent us from seeing the fluidity of life. Life at its essence is not rigid and unchanging. It is a dynamic process, constantly evolving, constantly shifting and full of uncertainty. Yet when we identify too strongly with our ego, we cling to the illusion that we must control and dominate our circumstances in order to feel secure. We want things to stay the same, to conform to our expectations, and when they don't, we feel threatened. This creates a constant state of anxiety because life is inherently unpredictable. No matter how hard we try to cling to stability, everything around us is in a constant state of flux. Ego and stubbornness also cause us to view the world in binary terms, right or wrong, good or bad, us or them. This black and white thinking limits our understanding and compassion, preventing us from seeing the complexity of situations and people. When we are trapped by ego, we fail to recognize that there is more than one valid perspective, that truth is often multifaceted and subjective. We become so attached to our own point of view that we fail to see the richness of the world in all its diversity. This narrowness creates conflict both with others and within ourselves. It isolates us from the possibility of deeper connection, understanding, and growth. The antidote to this ego-driven stubbornness is humility, the willingness to acknowledge that we do not have all the answers, that we are not separate from others, and that we are always learning. Humility allows us to let go of our attachment to being right, to being in control, and to being perfect. It helps us see that it is okay to be wrong, to make mistakes, and to change our minds. In fact, it is through humility that we come to know ourselves more deeply, for it is only when we let go of our rigid self-image that we can truly see who we are. When we can surrender our attachment to ego and embrace humility, we begin to experience freedom. We no longer need to defend ourselves against the world, because we realize that there is nothing to prove. We can let go of the need for validation and simply be without the weight of expectation or comparison. We can face the world with openness and curiosity, knowing that we are not separate from it, but part of the ever-changing flow of life. We are no longer trapped by the need to be right or to control everything, because we trust in the wisdom of the moment, in the inherent intelligence of life itself. By releasing our attachment to ego and stubbornness, we make space for growth and transformation. We can approach life with a sense of wonder, knowing that every experience, whether joyful or painful, is an opportunity to learn. Instead of holding tight to what we think we know, we allow ourselves to be shaped by the world, to be molded by our experiences, and to evolve into the person we are meant to be. The more we let go of our rigid self-image, the more we discover the fluid, expansive nature of life, and the more we align ourselves with the natural rhythm of the universe. Ultimately, ego and stubbornness keep us locked in a limited version of ourselves. They prevent us from seeing the interconnectedness of all things and from experiencing the fullness of life. By releasing these attachments, we open ourselves to the richness and depth of existence, to the beauty of change, and to the freedom of being fully present with what is. The more we let go of the need to control, the more we realize that life is not something to be conquered, but something to be experienced with humility, openness, and love. You said, "Right." Real courage lies in yielding, expended in 700 words about this speech without heading. ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. Real courage is often misunderstood. We are conditioned to think of courage as a form of brute strength, a power that requires us to face adversity head-on, stand tall in the face of danger, and push forward no matter the cost. It's easy to see courage as an external display of toughness, a kind of unwavering force that keeps us going even when the odds are stacked against us. However, true courage lies not in resisting, but in yielding. It is not the ability to force our way through life, but the ability to surrender to it with grace, to bend without breaking, and to adapt in ways that allow us to grow. We often associate yielding with weakness, with giving up, or with failing to stand up for what we believe in. But in reality, yielding requires a much deeper strength than simple resistance. It requires the courage to let go of our ego, to release the need to control everything, and to trust in the flow of life. It takes courage to admit that we don't have all the answers, that we are vulnerable, and that we are willing to learn from whatever life presents us. Yielding, in this sense, is not passive submission, but an active and conscious choice to embrace the impermanence and uncertainty of life with an open heart and mind. When we yield, we are not giving up on our dreams or aspirations. Rather, we are letting go of the rigid attachments that keep us locked in a limited view of ourselves and the world. We allow ourselves to be shaped by the experiences that come our way, instead of stubbornly fighting against them. Yielding is about recognizing that life is in constant motion, and that true strength comes not from holding firm to a single point, but from moving with that flow, adapting to it, and learning from it. One of the greatest acts of courage is the willingness to surrender control, especially in the face of uncertainty. We live in a world that encourages us to be self-reliant, to take charge, and to fight for what we want. While this drive for control can be useful in some situations, it often causes us to become rigid and overly attached to outcomes. We start to believe that we must always be in control, that if we let go, we will lose everything. This fear of surrender can lead to frustration, anxiety, and a deep sense of dissatisfaction. True courage is found in the ability to let go of the need for control. When we yield, we acknowledge that life is unpredictable, that there is always something beyond our comprehension, and that we are not separate from the world around us, but part of a larger interconnected whole. Yielding is not about passively waiting for things to happen, but about actively embracing the unknown, trusting that each experience, no matter how challenging, is an opportunity for growth. It's about acknowledging that we don't need to have everything figured out, that it's okay to be uncertain, and that our strength lies not in clinging to certainty, but in being open to whatever life brings. In relationships, true courage also lies in yielding. We often approach relationships with a sense of expectation, trying to mold others into what we want them to be. We may hold on to the idea that we need to be right or that we must always be in control of the dynamic. But in doing so, we close ourselves off from the true essence of connection. To truly connect with another person, we must be willing to yield, to soften our edges, and to allow them the space to be themselves. Yielding in relationships means listening with empathy, understanding with compassion, and being willing to adjust our perspective when we encounter differences. It takes courage to be vulnerable in this way, to let down our guard, and to let someone in without the need to manipulate or control the outcome. The courage to yield is also necessary when we face personal challenges. When we are confronted with a difficult situation, we often react with resistance, wanting to fight against it or push it away. We may feel that if we yield, we are admitting defeat. But the truth is that yielding is the first step toward transformation. When we resist change, we trap ourselves in the same cycle of fear and frustration. But when we yield to the flow of life, we allow ourselves to learn, adapt, and grow. Yielding in the face of difficulty means embracing the challenge as part of our personal evolution, accepting that hardship is a teacher, not an enemy. There is a profound freedom that comes from yielding. It's the freedom from the constant need to fight, to struggle, to control. When we yield, we allow ourselves to live in the present moment, free from the burden of expectations and the weight of our ego. We trust that life, with all its uncertainties and twists, will unfold in its own time and that we don't need to force it. In this yielding, we discover a deeper strength, a strength that comes from surrendering, from being vulnerable, and from allowing ourselves to be shaped by the world rather than trying to shape it according to our limited vision. Real courage is not about the ability to stand firm in the face of adversity, but the ability to yield in a way that allows us to flow with the natural rhythms of life. It is the courage to let go of our attachment to control, to accept the unknown, and to trust in the unfolding of life. Yielding requires a deep faith in the process, a willingness to let life be as it is, and the wisdom to know that in surrender we find the freedom to truly live. In yielding, we find that we are not passive victims of circumstance, but active participants in the dance of life, moving with its ebb and flow, and growing in ways we never could have imagined. Life, in its essence, is a journey marked by constant change, evolution, and transformation. Each moment, whether filled with joy or sorrow, offers a chance to grow, to learn, and to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Yet too often we see challenges as obstacles to be avoided, problems to be solved, or burdens to bear. We wish for life to be easy, smooth, and without difficulty. However, it is precisely through the challenges we face that we experience the most profound opportunities for growth. When we encounter challenges, it is natural to feel frustration or resistance. We may wish things were different, that life had been kinder, that the circumstances were more favorable. But in this resistance, we close ourselves off from the very lessons that life is offering us. Challenges are not something that happen to us by chance. They are part of the fabric of existence, designed to push us beyond our limitations, to help us evolve into stronger, wiser, and more compassionate beings. Growth comes not when life is predictable and safe, but when we are confronted with something that shakes us out of our comfort zone. It is through adversity that we develop resilience, resourcefulness, and wisdom. Every challenge, whether it is a personal setback, a difficult relationship, a professional obstacle, or a health issue, provides an opportunity to reflect, to examine our beliefs, and to ask deeper questions about what truly matters. It is in these moments of difficulty that we have the chance to reframe our understanding of ourselves and the world, to expand our awareness, and to cultivate a deeper sense of gratitude for both the challenges and the blessings in our lives. Life's challenges also offer us the chance to develop our emotional intelligence. We often react to challenges with strong emotions, anger, fear, frustration, or sadness. These emotions, while natural, can cloud our judgment if we do not learn to manage them. The process of navigating challenges teaches us how to process our feelings, how to respond rather than react, and how to develop patience with ourselves and others. We begin to see that emotions are not enemies to be suppressed, but messengers that guide us toward understanding our deeper needs and desires. Through the challenges we face, we learn how to be more compassionate, not only with others but with ourselves. We begin to see that everyone, at some point, faces difficulties, and that it is our shared humanity that connects us. Rather than viewing others' struggles with judgment or distance, we learn to meet them with empathy and understanding. This compassion, when extended inward, allows us to forgive ourselves for past mistakes, to accept our imperfections, and to move forward with a sense of peace and self-love. Moreover, challenges give us the opportunity to cultivate creativity and innovation. When we are faced with problems, we are often forced to think in new ways, to find alternative solutions, and to step outside the box of our usual thinking. What may initially appear as a setback becomes an invitation to innovate, to explore new possibilities, and to develop new skills. It is through these moments of challenge that we discover the depth of our own resourcefulness, our ability to adapt, and our capacity to create change in our own lives and in the lives of others. Life's challenges also encourage us to let go of our attachment to control. We often feel that in order to grow or succeed, we must control every aspect of our lives, our circumstances, our relationships, our careers. But in reality, life is unpredictable, and many of the challenges we face are beyond our control. The true opportunity for growth comes not from trying to control what we cannot, but from learning to surrender to what is. When we let go of the need to control, we open ourselves to new possibilities, to new ways of thinking, and to new ways of being. We learn that growth comes from trust in ourselves, in others, and in the unfolding of life. The process of growth through challenges is often not immediate. It is easy to become discouraged when we cannot see the results of our efforts right away. Growth is not always linear. Sometimes it feels as though we are taking one step forward and two steps back. But even in those moments of struggle, we are still growing, still evolving. Challenges require time, patience, and perseverance, and through them we come to understand that growth is not always about reaching a specific destination, but about the ongoing journey of transformation. Perhaps most importantly, facing life's challenges with an open heart allows us to cultivate a sense of peace, no matter what the outcome. When we view challenges as opportunities for growth, we shift our perspective from one of fear to one of curiosity. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we begin to ask, "What can I learn from this?" This shift in perspective empowers us to approach life's difficulties with a sense of equanimity, knowing that ultimately challenges are not the end of the road, but part of the process of becoming who we are meant to be. Growth does not happen in the absence of difficulty. It happens precisely because of it. Life's challenges are not to be feared, but embraced. They are the crucibles in which we refine ourselves, the tests that help us uncover our true potential, and the teachers that guide us toward a deeper understanding of the world and our place within it. By reframing our challenges as opportunities, we unlock the potential for growth, transformation, and ultimately a richer, more fulfilling life. In this way, we come to see that life's difficulties are not obstacles to be avoided or feared, but invitations to grow, evolve, and become more fully alive. Each challenge is an opportunity to awaken to the deeper wisdom within us, to cultivate the qualities that make us resilient, compassionate, and wise. It is through these challenges that we step into the fullness of who we are, and in doing so, we discover the vast potential that resides within each of us. Freedom is often thought of as the ability to do whatever we want, whenever we want, with no limitations. We think of it as a form of unbounded choice, a life with no restrictions or constraints. But true freedom lies not in the absence of limits, but in our relationship to them. It lies in embracing life as it is, without resistance, without the need to fight against the flow of existence. It is found in the willingness to surrender to life's natural rhythms, to accept both the beauty and the challenges that come our way, and to move through life with openness, flexibility, and trust. When we resist life, we create tension. We resist because we want things to be different from how they are. We resist the present moment, the circumstances we find ourselves in, and even the feelings that arise within us. This resistance often stems from our desire to control, to have things unfold in a specific way according to our expectations and desires. But in trying to control, we only create more struggle. We fight against what is, rather than accepting and flowing with it. This creates a constant inner battle, one that drains our energy and keeps us trapped in frustration, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. Freedom comes when we stop resisting what is happening in the present moment and start embracing life as it unfolds. This doesn't mean that we passively accept everything that happens to us or resign ourselves to suffering. Instead, it means that we stop fighting against the natural flow of life and allow ourselves to be in harmony with it. We stop pushing against the current and allow ourselves to float with it, trusting that the current will take us exactly where we need to go. When we stop resisting, we begin to experience life in its fullness. The beauty of life is that it is unpredictable, constantly changing, and full of surprises. When we try to control everything, we limit ourselves to a narrow and fixed view of what life should be. We miss out on the richness and diversity that life has to offer. But when we let go of resistance, we open ourselves to the vastness of possibility. We become more present, more open to the unexpected, and more willing to explore new experiences. In this openness, we discover the true freedom that comes from embracing life as it is, without the need to constantly fight against it. Letting go of resistance also means letting go of our attachment to outcomes. We often resist life because we want things to turn out a certain way. We set expectations for how our relationships, careers, and personal journeys should unfold, and when things don't go as planned, we feel disappointed, frustrated, or defeated. However, the attachment to a specific outcome keeps us bound. It keeps us focused on what we think should happen, rather than what is actually happening. By letting go of these attachments, we free ourselves from the need to control the future and open ourselves to the richness of the present moment. We begin to see that life is not about achieving specific goals or reaching certain milestones, but about living fully in each moment, embracing whatever comes our way with grace and curiosity. Freedom is also found in the acceptance of our own imperfections. We often resist ourselves, our emotions, and our experiences because we feel that we are not good enough, that we need to be something more or different in order to be worthy. This resistance to ourselves creates inner conflict, as we try to be something we are not. But when we embrace ourselves, our flaws, our weaknesses, and our imperfections, we open the door to true freedom. We stop trying to be perfect and allow ourselves to be human. We allow ourselves to make mistakes, to learn, and to grow. This acceptance of ourselves creates peace, and in that peace we find the freedom to be who we truly are, without the need for validation or approval from others. When we resist life, we often resist change. Change can be uncomfortable, unsettling, and sometimes even painful. We become attached to the familiar and the known, we fear the unknown. But change is the very nature of life. Nothing stays the same. When we fight against change, we fight against the flow of life itself. But when we embrace change, we open ourselves to the endless possibilities it brings. We begin to see that change is not something to fear, but something to welcome. Each change is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to transform. It is through change that we evolve and move closer to our true potential. In this way, freedom lies not in resisting life, but in embracing it with all its uncertainties, challenges, and surprises. Freedom comes when we stop trying to control everything and allow ourselves to be in the moment, to flow with life as it unfolds. It comes when we let go of our attachments to outcomes, to perfection, and to the way we think things should be. It comes when we accept ourselves fully, knowing that we are enough just as we are. And it comes when we embrace change, seeing it not as a threat, but as a natural and essential part of the process of growth. The key to true freedom is surrender, not surrender in the sense of giving up or resigning ourselves to passivity, but surrender in the sense of letting go of resistance. It is about surrendering to life as it is, to the ebb and flow of our experiences, and to the wisdom that arises from embracing the present moment. When we surrender in this way, we discover a freedom that transcends external circumstances. We realize that the only thing we ever need to control is our own response to life. We become free not by fighting, but by flowing, by embracing the present, trusting in the unfolding of life, and surrendering to the infinite possibilities that await us. True freedom lies in embracing life without resistance, in letting go of the need to control, and in allowing ourselves to be fully present to each moment as it comes. When we do this, we find that life becomes less of a struggle and more of a journey full of freedom, peace, and growth. In the end, freedom is not something we gain by conquering the world around us. It is something we find within ourselves when we stop resisting life, when we stop fighting against the present moment and begin to embrace it as it is. Life, with all its complexities, uncertainties, and challenges, is not something to be feared or controlled, but something to be experienced fully. True freedom arises when we let go of the need for control, the attachment to outcomes, and the resistance to change. It is in embracing life without resistance that we discover the peace, creativity, and strength that allow us to live with grace, curiosity, and an open heart. So let us choose to surrender to the flow of life, not out of weakness, but out of trust and understanding. Let us release the burden of resistance and step into the freedom that comes with fully accepting ourselves and the world around us. In this freedom, we find our truest expression, the deepest sense of peace, and the profound joy that comes from living in harmony with life itself. The more we yield to the flow of life, the more we open ourselves to its infinite possibilities. This is where true freedom lies, not in the absence of limits, but in the liberation that comes from embracing life without resistance.